I remember in 2020, like, she was like learning as she went. She was like asking people after a debate, what do you all think of Medicare for all? Because that wasn't her original position. And she saw that.
Mind. Yeah, she went against it because someone brought up how, like, wouldn't private insurance be like abolished? She like, it would? Oh, I'm against it now. Like, she like changed.
Listen,
wait, why did you change her mind? Like, what the hell?
It's great if she changes her mind or whatever, but if you're gonna be that strong candidate who's gonna push the president of the United States left, you need some, you need something behind that.
Tell us on her, Mike. You say you would vote for her. What would be your pitch for her? If you was the chief of staff right now, you're trying to get us to vote for her, what would you say? Why are you giving her your vote? I want to hear.
Because she's not Joe Biden.
So we have a lot of questions and people asking our thoughts and opinions on Marianne Williamson. Like a lot of questions.
I want Olay to go first.
Marianne
So do I.
I saw that face.
I want to set the tempo. Set the tempo.
I ain't
Come
got
on.
nothing to say. Y'all have about that. Y'all have about that. Knock yourselves out.
So I have a bigger breakdown on my channel this week. My first video on it. Basically, I don't know. Point is, she's not going to defeat Biden for the nomination. Just to quickly clear anybody that thinks that is a possibility.
That's not the point.
It's not like Bernie Sanders. It's not like Donald Trump. Voters on the right vote because of emotion, that kind of thing. Democratic voters vote usually based on media narratives, based on what's comfortable, based on who they're told is electable. That's not Marianne Williamson. We're talking about a primary. We're talking about an incumbency in Joe Biden. So it's not like 2016. Williamson's not in government. So it's anyways, she's not going to be Biden for various reasons. Watch my video for more on that. In terms of, whether this is a serious run, whether it's to sell her books, my point on that is that her intention doesn't matter as much as potential impact, and the potential impact, if she is covered, which I don't think she will be past this week, but if she is covered by the media, by mainstream press generally, then there is a potential there to have what she is discussing in her platform, which is a good, it's the working class message. It's a Bernie message. There is a good chance that could, maybe stop Biden from trying to just grab right-wing voters, is what, these runs typically try to do. They try to go after voters on the right as opposed to bring out new people to vote, is how Democrats should be trying to win. But I don't have much faith that's going to happen because I don't think she's going to be covered, really. So regardless of her intention in the run, I don't think that matters as much as the potential impact, but that impact really, I think, is going to be negligible. But I don't know.
If she uses
watch my videos for more.
Do you want to plug before I say something? But I was going to say, if she uses this as like an opportunity to basically go on mainstream media and then be like, hey, we should end the military-industrial complex. That's cool. So I'd be fine with that if that's like the extent of it, right? And like, Biden should probably not expand the amount of money the Pentagon's asking for weapons and bombs and not do that thing. That'd be great. So if that's all there is to it, then yeah, I don't really have any opposition to the run, so to speak.
And to be clear, she has been doing she has been doing that in interviews this week and I guess last week. She has if you go to her site, a solid platform, and she's discussed it, and she's I think a solid orator for at least a certain audience. But I don't think past this week there's going to be a whole lot of talk about Williamson.
Yeah, I mean, there's no downsides to her running. I think that for the left, there's only positives. I'm going to be voting for her in a primary. Like, why not? I don't want people to get their hopes up and think that there could be like another Bernie Sanders situation, because as David said, like, this is a primary challenger to an incumbent president. She has a near zero chance of winning. So best case scenario, she can kind of exert pressure on Biden or elevate the salience of particular issues. And that does matter. Like, that's not insignificant. I think that does matter. But in terms of like, there's like this sub conversation going on about whether or not she should have ran as a third party candidate. None of that matters until we actually change the institutions, because our institutions are set up so there is always just two parties. It's called Duverger's law. So what she's doing here is, I think, the best that she can to influence the conversation. And regardless if that is to promote a book or something like that, I honestly don't care as long as she's talking about these issues, like she's talking about Medicare for all and healthcare. I love that. I value that. So if she brings that to the table and gets Biden to maybe do better, which probably not, but Biden ran away from a public option. So to recenter the conversation on Medicare for all when we were kind of skewing further right and not even discussing a public option, I think that is important. So like to the extent that I'll support Marianne Williamson, I'm voting for her. I'm not going to donate any money, unfortunately, and I can't recommend that other people do the same because it's like we're stretched thin, right? There's other members of Congress that we want to see get elected, or potential members of Congress that we want to see get elected. So, you don't have to get super invested in this. Don't get your hopes up. It's just this is about messaging. Period. End of story.
You're all being very nice. Listen, I think she, as a person who's put herself out there, she seems like she believes what she says, and she seems like a very nice individual. But this run, what's behind it? Nothing. There's nothing behind it. I'm not going to tell someone not to run. Anyone who wants to run should run. But the whole point of pushing someone, if you're running a campaign, even if the point is you're going to lose, but to push someone, there's supposed to be a movement behind you. That's why Bernie's campaign was so successful. That's why those left-wing campaigns that just try to push someone towards the left are more successful, because there's some sort of movement behind them, or the individual is a well-respected, long-time person within the scene, the leftist movement. She's just not that. There's nothing behind her. The idea that she's going to push Biden anywhere is, and I say this as someone who thinks she's nice, it's laughable. It's laughable. She's not going to be able to do any of that. She isn't. And I'm saying she should run. She should run. She should do whatever the hell she wants. I like her. I like what she says. She just doesn't have that long-term standing within the left. Like, I remember in 2016 when did she run? In 2020 she ran, right?
Yeah,
I remember in 2020, like, she was like learning as she went. She was like asking people after a debate, what do you all think of Medicare for all? Because that wasn't her original position. And she saw that
mind. Yeah, she went against it because someone brought up how, like, wouldn't private insurance be like abolished? She like, it would. Oh, I'm against it now. Like she changed.
Listen.
Wait, what? She changed her mind. Like, what the hell?
It's great if she changes her mind or whatever. But if you're gonna be that strong candidate who's gonna push the president of the United States left, you need some, you need something behind that. And she doesn't have it. She doesn't have that.
Groups, something. Yeah. I in my first video on that, I mentioned as well, like, has she been building this for a couple of years? Because it doesn't seem like it. It's more just like all of a sudden, I'm running for president. She has a nice graphic, and I don't know. I guess there's some money behind her somehow. But there's no. It does. I agree with you. It's just there's nothing that's.
I respect that she's running as a Democrat and not third party, so she could play some sort of spoiler role. Because I mean, she knows what her role here is, or what she hopes for it to be, and it's not that she's going to be president. It's that maybe she builds a movement or pushes Biden. But I don't see any sort of trajectory there. It just doesn't seem like that's the case.
In her defense, though, like, I think that most people acknowledge that this is an incumbent president Democratic Party primary, so it is really hard to generate a movement or excitement. Like, if this were just a blank slate and this were the 2028 primary and it's a free-for-all, I think that there's more potential there. But when you're going up against an incumbent president, that is so difficult.
Tell us on her, Mike. You say you would vote for her. What would be your pitch for her? If you was the chief of staff right now, you're trying to get us to vote for her, what would you say? Why are you giving her your vote? I want to hear.
Because she's not Joe Biden. That's it.
I would just say, I mean, in a primary, it doesn't really matter, right? Like, it's a primary.
Wait, Mike, can you
to
do
the left of Biden? And if somebody else emerges that's to the left of her, like if we get a real commie, I'll vote for the commie. I'm just anyone who's not Biden is my small, teeny tiny, insignificant way of sending a message to the Democratic Party that they don't give a shit about that. Hey, Biden sucks ass. I'd like somebody better. But at the end of the day, it really, in the grand scheme of things, I hate to say it, folks, doesn't really make that big of a difference, right? I appreciate the substance that she brings to these conversations. I think it's really important. Again, like, I feel like she's done better with regard to Medicare for all, and she has the facts and the figures down. And when she's gone on these interviews, the way that she speaks about Medicare for all in particular, is really, really beautiful. So I appreciate that. But at the end of the day, in terms of getting power, it's going to be almost like, I'm not going to say impossible, but we're talking like 0.00001% chance of her winning a single primary. So I just don't want people to get their hopes up as they did like with Bernie Sanders in 2016 and 2020, because this is about the messaging and trying to shift the Overton window to the left, in my view. And that's really it.
But could you phrase that in the form of an attack ad and use the attack ad like voice too? Be like, in a world where Marianne Williamson and play it all out.
But the problem is though, like, listen, if she pulls off something, and I'll be happy to eat my hat. I'm not like,
you're not wearing a hat.
I'm not Mr. Pro Joe Biden or whatever. But she's just not the person. She just doesn't have that long standing, like, you know, and there's not many people either who can do it, and who have that. You know, I know you could easily just throw out Bernie, but look, even Bernie has his limits. He's pushed Joe Biden as far as probably Joe Biden will go left. Like if Bernie, if Bernie came out today and said he was going to run a campaign, I'm sure that Biden would be worried, and his people would be worried, because that's someone who can mount an actual campaign against him. But even then, how far can Bernie push Joe Biden? He's already tried to do that, and we've seen where that goes. I mean,
Biden is considering implementing the family separation policy. Like, pushing him at all is going to be really fucking hard.
It also just seems like there's very little appetite, at least right now, for a challenge to Biden. Like, you can look at polls, and I've cited these polls, where like most people do not want Biden to run again. They want somebody else. But when the rubber meets the road, like there's not really going, like, at least for a Marianne Williamson, like it would have to be someone like a Bernie. And even then, I don't think I would want him to do it, because I don't think it would be successful, and it would just kind of be a dud. Like, again, you're going up against a president. It doesn't.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. Any Democrat that primaries a sitting Democratic president is basically asking for their career to end that way. Yeah. They will never be looked at the same.
Historically, yeah.
They will never be looked at the same again. Yes. Yeah, I mean, listen, I saw polls that within the Democratic Party, Biden's approval rating is way, way up.
Which is so sad.
Especially with young people, the 18 to 29 demographic approve of Biden more than any other demographic.
That doesn't surprise me. The alternative is like trans people shouldn't exist. That's the other side. Yeah. So like for a young person who, like, most of them are like, they're in touch with this kind of shit, they see that. Yeah, obviously. If I looked over, okay, so what's the alternative to this fucking war criminal 1994 crime bill, creep show, smells women's hair? It's the elimination of queer people from the earth. Well then, yeah. So I'm gonna go with the first one.
Not to mention like everything. Like it's just like this or fascism. Like that's
that's it, right?
That's what people are
like
looking at. So all
open
of a sudden,
fascism
Biden looks mighty fine compared to that. Like,
he looks great.
Yeah, if ever there was a point in time that the Democrats were right to use the GOP boogeyman argument, not to excuse their terribleness, but like if ever there was a time for them to use that argument and have it land, it's right now. I mean, like, I don't know how close we are to the death camps, not to be hyperbolic, but it's bad. Like we're having Republicans openly call for the eradication of transgenderism. It's scary. Like, there's actual organizations now. Somebody just reached out to me personally. I'm going to bring on my show, who's trying to transport people out of the United States who are trans just to save them, or get them into different states where they're going to be more safer. Like, it's a bad situation right now. So I hate the Democratic Party. They're terrible, but there's just not even a comparison to the Republicans at this point. They're just so far beyond the pale and such a threat to democracy and the world that the whole lesser of two evil thing doesn't even apply in this instance. Like, we're talking about like a force that can like crush the country and lead to genocide.
And on that point, like groups like the one that Mike just mentioned, that's where a lot of people's energy should be going towards. Like, I think sometimes people on the left get maybe a little, and this is in terms of like what I do. I cover politics, I cover news, but if you like, don't put all your hopes and dreams in like an election every 4 years. Like, that isn't the end all be all, right? Like there is movements being built on the ground. There are groups doing active, like fantastic work. That's where your hopes should be at the moment. Like, don't be thinking, oh, look at these people call themselves leftist mafia and they won't even back Marianne Williamson. Like, that's a ridiculous way to try and look at any of these issues or politics generally. It's not about the election every 4 years. It's about what else is going on in between.
I also think there's an internet left that gets carried away sometimes and loses any sense of nuance. Like, there are people that are like very much so to the left because they are organizers and people engaged in actual movements and things every day that don't care to be involved in politics from the sense of like football, and are not interested with who like the internet left has decided they really love and are keyed into and is like rallying around. And some people don't have the luxury to be that interested on an ideological, philosophical level that they put together in their online communities that they really want to back a particular kind of person. Some people are particularly busy. And I think like, you know, I straddle the worlds of like, for me, I don't care about politics on a football level of what the Democrats and the Republicans and who's doing what and the little faction of the day. I don't find it interesting if it doesn't, insofar as it converges with what is happening with like people and particular things and that I'm following and movements and shit that I care about. I verge on that, and then also being that's one side. And then to me, if I'm gonna bother to care, then it becomes about what makes sense, which is a different set of brain. And so in either world for me, the Marianne Williamson thing doesn't get me geared up in either brain. Like,
oh yeah, we're still talking about
neither brain.
I forgot about that.
Neither brain. And sometimes I also think sometimes there is not a true there are different kinds. There's a much wider political spectrum than we care to like acknowledge, and there's a lot of nuance to things. Like there's a left, there's a black left, there's all these kinds of things. And sometimes who we've decided is the most progressive, because that's who's in our face, and then by our I mean like white mainstream. What is the conversation we're having on the internet and stuff like that is the most leftist progressive thing is really not all too as what
there's
you
a
think
clown
it is.
shoes
like,
left. There's tons of different kinds.
Yeah. So for me, I'm just like, you know, I'm all for, but I will say I see a lot of the comments. People are very interested in her coming on. So if that is a thing, I would just say, well, sign on to that. I'm all for the people being able to. I have no opinions. Y'all know I can't vote. Don't nobody look this way. Don't listen to me. Don't say I told you what to do. Nah, I can't even vote. This is a Bahamian. I mind my business. Can't vote in nobody's primary. Marianne was the only candidate in 2020 for full-on reparations. Why'd you scream that at me? You said at Miss O'Lurin, Marianne was the caps lock only candidate in 2020 for full-on reparations. So because I'm black, my flagship issue is reparations. That's great. That's fucking wild. That's wild. That's powerful. That's powerful.
Not to other you, but
I y'all keep it. Everybody have it. Yes, I'm a Bahamian citizen, Rachel.
You should care about this. You should care. This is a crucial issue to you.
That's time for Binder.
This poll is the perfect showing of what we're talking about here. This is a poll, a University of North Florida poll. Speaking to Florida voters, Florida voters prefer Trump to Biden 50 to 43%. They prefer DeSantis to Biden 51 to 42%. But when you ask them about policies, 75 to 22% oppose the 6-week abortion ban.
No
77% to 21% oppose concealed carry laws. 61% to 35% oppose banning CRT on campuses. They literally support the candidates who want to give them the things they don't support. There is a disconnect here. There is a disconnect here.
Between what they're being sold, right? Between what like they're being told by the millionaires paid by billionaires on a regular basis to what actually is going to play out.
Like, I would normally say it's because they value their racism over everything else. But when you even have ban CRT and they're opposing that also kind of flies in the face of that idea. They're really just fucking stupid. Like, unbelievable.
From Kentucky that Aaron Reed shared, where it showed that there is no support, even among Republicans, for banning gender affirming care. Like a majority of Republicans in Kentucky are against it. So they keep voting for these politicians who are doing what they don't want, and then they're wondering why nothing's changing.
But it's wild. Like, did you see that? Who's the governor of Arkansas right now? I forget her name. Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
Hutchinson.
Yeah, Sarah Huckabee Sanders is like, okay, so I have achieved things. Right. Yeah, for the
Bernie Sanders' wife.
Yes, exactly. I've achieved things for the people. What did she do? She
That's
banned
so
CRT.
Sorry, go
I'm gonna ignore that. That never happened. So banning CRT and making sure woke ideology is destroyed. Same thing with like DeSantis in Florida. This is where woke ideology goes to like. They brought fucking Matt Walsh to speak in Mississippi about like children's genitals and stuff like that. Matt Walsh, that has like Mississippi has the highest rate of infant mortality in the United States. That motherfucker does not like give two shits about the healthcare of children, and this is a serious problem. This is an incredibly impoverished state. It's got a lot of issues. What are you going to do to help the people? What's the governor going to do? And it's like, well, I'm going to invite the white supremacist Matt Walsh to talk about how kids' genitals need to be inspected by him. That's like it's such a clown theater. I don't know how else to describe it. Every time I see this, where it's like the very politicians who pretend to care and speak to their constituents. They don't give two fucks. They're totally fine bringing these bigots and assholes and racists and transphobes to speak. Meanwhile, people are dying and suffering, and like, but you do nothing. You just sit back and be like, distractions.
Yeah, I've been mulling over this. The Sarah Huckabee Sanders is actually Mike Huckabee and Bernie Sanders' child. That's where I'm going with.
All right. I'm out. I have to leave. I can't be part of the stream anymore. Bye.
That sounds like some woke nonsense to me, Matt. Two men having a kid.
Terrible.
Speaking of
Sanders is not not that unique of a name. Like there's many Sanderses is in the world.
David Dole is Bob Dole's son.
That's nah. Cat's out of the bag.
All right,
You
so
don't understand though. Like when that shit was popping off, like when Bob Dole was on The Simpsons in the 90s, kids were calling me like Bob Dole. It was a thing for like a year.
Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form, available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Juste, we shall spend many a generations building mighty cathedrals in your honor. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your oafish jesters, here to offer you a laugh at any opportunity. To our brave knights of the Round Table, Rachel K., Izzy Solidarity, Victoria Bell, Sebastian Demmel, Mark Harmon, Benji Arney, Scary Earth Human, Tony, DM Rivera, Resident Scarecrow, Sir Nickus, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Brandon, Words Greenwood, Everything Important, Hegbert Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Doug Cady, Daniel Sutton, Jenna Tao, Dark Puppy, Quiet One 85, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, Multimondi, Trevbot EXE, Brian Ephraim, Anthropophojack, Catherine, Ramon Acosta, Nkosin, Ralph Parler, Violent Orchard, Political Puppy, La Media Panza, Todd Buckingham, and Todd La Jeunesse. We salute our valiant heroes off to fight injustice everywhere.